I'm Rachel Norman at the University of Stirling. I met a few of you at writing retreats, but not all of you. This session is the launch in a I don't know who's going to cut the ribbon, but we're launching our dataset aggregator, which is basically a database for data sets. I will tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. So we're going to start out with, I'll introduce why we're doing this and what the point of it was, and remind you all what SCAF's about, and then I hand over to Jan, who did all the work on it, who's going to tell us how to use it. Then we'll have a kind of Q&A, so you can ask about anything, and then if you already have data sets that you would like to upload, at that point we'll stay online and support people to do that. So bit of talking at the beginning and then some practical stuff if you've got those data sets at the end. So for those who've not been to SCAF events before, just a reminder of what the Scottish Alliance for Food is about. It's a Scottish Funding Council funded network that's about the whole food system, so any aspects of food in general, and how we look at our food future and make it coherent, at keeping people and the planet healthy. So it's about healthy people, healthy planet, and maintaining culture and tradition at the same time. So not a small ask, but research interests from all aspects of that food system. So it's about social, natural, applied sciences, arts and humanities, so all of those disciplines coming together to look at the complexity of the food system, and not just academic aspects, but we've got industry and third sector and public members as well. And it's about collaboration and shared responsibility, looking at a better food future, and as I said, health, sustainability and equity across the food system. So lots of complex interacting aspects to that. The way we're set up is that there are 4 themes, and this activity comes largely under the mapping theme, which I'll tell you a bit more about in a minute. And then there's a food systems and Academy of Citizens kind of cross-cutting themes that are going on all the time. And the sort of activities that SCAF do are looking for collaborative research projects, webinars, and workshops, trying to develop research proposals, writing retreats and sandpits. I was just saying, I know a few of you have come along to, talking to stakeholders, funding bodies, industry partners, and trying to work together to foster a positive research culture, which this work sits firmly in the middle of, and then some financial pump priming of projects. So lots of brilliant activity over the last few years and planned for the next year. So the theme 1 is mapping the food system, and again, that could be defined in lots of different ways. We'll look at what we mean by mapping in a minute, but the aim of the theme, we're trying to facilitate collaboration, trying to avoid duplication of efforts, which is what this data aggregator is partly about. Looking at gaps, again, that's what we hope we'll be able to interpret from what we get submitted to this. So where do we need more research and data? So let's not keep measuring the same things over and over again. Let's look for the gaps and then try and fill those gaps, and look at collaborations and exchanging knowledge and approaches. So we're trying to find synergies for food system mapping. And again, what do we mean by mapping? So that could be geographical, it could be research theme based, it could be community projects. So we're identifying and analysing components of the food system, collecting data, which is what this is about, looking at societal and environmental impacts, trying to find inefficiencies and vulnerabilities, but opportunities for improvement more importantly, and trying to inform decision making. So that's the grand goal of the theme. And there's, although I'm presenting this, there are a few of us leading this theme. So there's several people from different institutions working together on this. And the data aggregator came from a workshop we had in April 2024, which feels like quite a long time ago now. And the outcome of that was that people came who were kind of had data sets or wanted to find out what was out there, and they thought developing an online database, or if we've been calling an aggregator, as a place to share links to data sets was a good outcome. And so we appointed Giancarlo as an intern to do that piece of work. So the idea is we're going to show what's there, prevent duplication, it will support collaboration, identify gaps, and basically maximize the data that we have collectively between us. And that could be big data sets that are already sitting on people's shared data repositories at institutions, or things people have got in the drawer and haven't used for a while, but other people might be able to make something of. And so we've been working since the summer on asking people what they would like, how they would want to use it, how much information they were willing to share, setting up the database. We got a few people to try it out. So a few of you may have filled in a survey for us. If so, thank you. And we're trying to look at how to make it sustainable in the long term. Then Jan did an unconference session at the annual conference, and we tried to identify some potential data sets. So he'll show you, we've got a few initial ones on there. So it is for any members of the SCAF community, in the sense that there can be data on soil science, on nutrition, on arts-based approaches to food, any aspect of the food system. Then we welcome those data sets for people to look at. So, and from all sectors. So for example, the Soil Association were at the initial workshop, and they thought they'd got lots of data that they couldn't make the most of, and they would welcome people working on those data sets, for example. It could be about people who want to access data to, as I say, find out what's already out there, what we already know, look at who's working in similar areas to them so they can support collaborative opportunities. They can get in touch and say, can we add our data together and make the most of it? Prevent duplication, I've said a few times now, ironically. And for example, there may be people sitting with student projects, or students who are looking for projects that this could support. And we're hoping people will share their data, and that will help them make the most of the data they've already collected. If certainly no, people often don't have the capacity to do more analysis than they've already done, and could make that available so people can work on it and get new insight. And again, that they could collaborate and work together on that to use the data that's been collected. And so my last slide is, Jan will talk about this a little bit more, but you get to, if you submit your data, you get to define how people are allowed to access it. So you could just make it completely freely available. You could say you can only use it with permission or acknowledgement, or if we collaborate, you could say it's only available on request. So you get to choose the kind of level of availability if you've got data that you don't want to kind of just put out in the wild. You're only sharing the link to the data, so SCAF's not responsible or doesn't hold or own the data, it's your data. So we're asking you to share a link to, hopefully it's on your own university or other site. And again, we've got an alternative to that if it's not, that Jan will talk about in a minute. And there is guidance. So for some of us, knowing whether you are allowed to share data or not might be a problem. And so there's guidance on there about when you can share data, and we'll talk about that again in a little bit. Okay, so that's why we're doing it, what we're aiming for, and what we hope to achieve with this data aggregator. I will stop sharing and hand over to Jan.
But yeah, thank you, and hello everyone. I am the maker of this little website, and I'll show you two aspects of it. So as a person who just browses through it, and as a person who intends to submit new items to it. It works as you would expect. There's a big search bar. I can very creatively search for food. And as you can see, we've populated that. I mostly put things that were on the Scottish Government website, but in the future this will be a much longer list. As what's it called, Biobank. So as you can see, the stuff that's here at the moment, it's all publicly available, but the website itself can store information relating to data that is only available on request. So for example, this one cannot be made public, but if you're a researcher, you can request for it. So this opens up a lot of opportunities. Maybe if you're a researcher and you have a lot of big, messy data, it might be feasible for you to share it in this way, to say, I have this data. If you're interested in using it, contact me. And so in every page, if you click on it, you can get a little abstract. You can get an overview of whatever it relates to the data set. A bit more about methodology, about when it was collected, where, and it will have contact details, usage instructions. In this case, there's no link, but if we search for, what's it called, national diet, they will have a link or more than one link at the bottom. So I can show it to you. I think this is, yeah, the Food Standards Agency. The website, as it is, looks quite simple, but if you click this magic button, you get a lot of filters. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. You're free to explore. But essentially, you can say that it needs to contain certain keywords. Apparently, I search for hello. You can make sure they're publicly available. Maybe I want them to be from Wales. Maybe made before 2025, before the pandemic. But you get the idea. Apparently, we don't have that at the moment. If you want to see all the data sets, there's this page called the dataset listing, which at the moment is a little short, but will get longer. There's some contact details. As you can see, the main people at the moment are Rachel Norman and Laura Hag, but this is the email address you should use for contacting us. And finally, we get onto the interesting page, which is how to submit. Of course, I'm the maker of this website, so I'll be very happy to see it having many, many items within it. So for any piece of information relating to submission, you go to this page. And as you can see, it has a link to a form. I'll go through it very quickly. I want to stress that submitting is quite simple and short, as you'll see. And if you submit, there's a few advantages. Of course, that's everything that Rachel said. You're helping the SCAF community. But on a more technical note, every page, let me go. Was it cow? Do I have anything? No, I'll go to this one. Diet. Every single page becomes discoverable by Google. So what that means is that if you're searching for things on Google, the dataset you put in this website might appear in the search results. If you just upload your data on your university website, that's very unlikely to happen. It might be technically available to the public, but it's not findable, if that makes sense. And so by uploading to this website, it automatically also makes it appear on Google, which I think is a big advantage. So let's go through the submission form. I'm going to show you what I put in the form to make this page appear. So I'm going to try to split my screen. And I promise the form is quite short. So it starts off with a lot of tick boxes about consent. As Rachel said, We don't store the data itself, we just present a link and information to it, but there's still some consent about whether you allow us to display the page and whatnot. You'll be putting your name just so we can track who's submitting things. And there's various boring permissions. There's nothing too scary. Then there's some ethics. We'll talk about legality in a second, but we just want to make sure you're aware of all the rules about making data public. The nature of the website makes it so that there should not be any issues, but I still wanted the reader to be aware of them. This section is fast, and there's this very important question, which is the shareability. And it asks whether the data is publicly shareable, such as this one, if it's available on request, and if it's not shareable in any way. If you put it's not shareable in any way, you'll actually get kicked out of the form. So in this case, I will say that it's publicly shareable. It asks whether it's already available somewhere. This was on the food. Who uploaded this? The Food Standards Agency. So in this case, it was already publicly available. In your case, it might be through your university repository or Google Drive or GitHub. We'll see that in a second. And then I put some links to the data. That's really what I put here is really what appeared here. It's really quite a straightforward transition. And then the dataset title, the keywords, nothing too unexpected here. What category you would put this data under. So I put under nutrition. The metadata, essentially. Author, contact details, types of data, the abstract. So the abstract is what appears here. The country, the methodology. This can be just a link to the methodology. The time range of the data, whether it's complete or not, because you can update it over time. I'll see that in a second. And then there's this section, the most important one. So for every page, the most important part is the long description, where we say this is data about this and that. It contains these columns, maybe it has these categories inside of it. You write it here. It's a little strange because as you can see, what's a good example? I've got words in bold, I've got words in italic, and to do that, you use this weird little system where you put asterisks and pound symbols. That's called Markdown, and you don't need to learn it. There's these handy websites where you can type, this is a demo. I can edit it like it's Word. Maybe I have some bullet points. 1, 2, 3. And once you're done with it, you copy and you paste it here. So nothing too alien. I promise it's a fast process. Then some boring information about copyright, if there's any. Usage instructions, acknowledgements, and we're done. If I clicked submit, it would actually go through, so I'm not going to do that. I would like to note that once you submit, you should not run to the website and check immediately if it appears. You know, we don't want anything dodgy appearing here. So there's actually a moderation process. So once you fill out the form, Laura or Rachel or whoever it is will manually approve it or disapprove it. So if it doesn't appear and you're mad about it, contact them, don't contact me. And that's all you need to do to submit the data. I should say this page contains the forms, but it also contains a lot of helpful links. So for example, whether you can share the data legally and the ethics of it, or whether it's publicly available or not, or whether it's digitally available. Maybe you have it in a drawer full of paper that has numbers written manually. All the information is here. The legality is probably the most interesting part to a lot of you. So I can show you here this neat little document I made. It's essentially a choose your own adventure to determine whether you can share your data or not. So I was talking to Rachel, for example, about a data set she might be able to put on the website. And Rachel, could you briefly describe your data set?
Yes, so we, a number of years ago, did a survey of people in Bangladesh to find out whether they, how they were affected by floods and drought and how that affected their food security. So it's a little Excel spreadsheet with anonymized data around in the flood in 19 whatever or 2023, what happened.
Okay, and so we can determine if Rachel would be able to share this. So it says step 1, go to table C to see which regulations apply. GDPR is the big one usually. So you said it was anonymized.
Yeah.
Does it contain name, email addresses, jobs, ages?
No.
Okay, so GDPR does not apply to you. Of course, there's a lot of links if you really want to make sure, but the short answer is you don't need to worry. Was this data produced from a public authority in the UK, such as the government?
No.
No, so you don't need to worry about FOIA. But yeah, you get the idea. This is a fairly short document. It's essentially just if this applies to you, go here. If this applies to you, go there. And this document covers everything about the UK and Scotland in particular. Scotland has some special rules. It also covers a few European rules that also might apply to you. So as well as this legality guidance, there's some on how to make your data public. This document is less flashy. So if you're an academic, you can probably upload your data on your university website. Here we have data store. But if you can't do that, there's another website called GitHub, which makes it quite easy to upload stuff and make it publicly available. If you're not familiar, here's the document for you with pictures. So nothing too scary. And finally, if you need to digitize your data, convert it from paper to Excel spreadsheets, audio recordings into text. There's also this document with a lot of links. But remember that your data does not necessarily need to be public. Maybe you just want to advertise that you have it, and that you want other people to use it as well. I think that's everything I wanted to say. So in short, please submit. I promise it's not too long. Maybe we can submit some things today. And yeah, thank you very much for listening.